Hello guys, welcome to our little short presentation about my company. Today my colleague and I will be going to be giving a short introduction for my company, Ryobi Geotechnique International. So Ryobi G, short for Ryobi Geotechnique International, cater to a wide range of geo solutions in geotechnical engineering and related fields for Asia, particularly in Singapore and Malaysia. So this is our 20th year of operation, and I'm very proud to say that we are one of the industry leaders now, specializing in this aspect. Our fundamental focus is based on products and services in geotechnical engineering, general instrumentation, real-time, underground imaging, tremor monitoring, drones, and 3D laser scanning. Over the past few years, Ryobi G Group has achieved substantial growth, attaining successful tenders and effectuations of projects which continually provide benefits to our clients, varies from government agency to engineering consultancy to main contractors. So today we will be going through a few items, introduction of our speakers, purpose of this presentation, conclusion of our today's discussed topics, and Q&A. If you have any questions, you may type in the comment below or wait until the end of the presentation. We will give you our emails and you can visit our websites. Well, I will start off with myself. My name is Frank Chai and I've been working with Ryobi G for the past 6 years since 2014. I started in Ryobi G as an engineering role, and now I'm handling sales and marketing for my company for all the services based in Singapore. And my colleagues, Reuben, will be joining me as co-presenter. Maybe my colleague could give a short introduction of himself. Reuben?
Thanks, Frank. Hi, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in. For those who don't know, my name is Reuben. I'm an engineering geologist and I have worked in Ryobi Geotechnique for the past 5 years. I am currently the deputy manager and head of office in Kuala Lumpur, as well as head of marketing and operations as well. That's all from me. Back to you, Frank.
Thanks, Reuben. So we will be covering mainly 3 topics today. So we'll be talking about geotechnics, monitoring, surveying topics. So just a short one, geotechnics can be defined by using engineering principles to control the behaviors of the earth material under the influence of loading forces and soil-water interactions. So in Ryobi G, we cater for all sorts of geotechnic solutions for our client. Namely, some of the popular ones are soil investigation works, micropiling, soil nailing, ground anchors, relief and recharge wells, and the list goes on. Here are some of the application examples, such as land and marine soil investigation, soil stabilization, deep excavation, and rock reinforcement, and etc. etc. Now, I will go through some of these application examples in more detail in the next few slides. Now, we all know Singapore Changi Airport is one of the busiest airports in the world, serving approximately around 60 million passengers every year. And to have operations work carried out within CAG airside is tedious and challenging at the same time. Sharing one of our completed projects awarded by Changi Airport Group and Arup Singapore to carry out a preliminary works future for Terminal 5 development. Now, we have conducted soil investigation works and con penetration tests. These tests were done within the air sites under these conditions. 1, strict working hours, stringent aerodromes, and lastly, air sites requirements. These compliance ought to be met all times in order for the project to be carried out smoothly without any disruption to the existing logistics and airline maneuver around Changi Airport aerodromes. I would also like to share with you one of our projects. We are also awarded a soil investigation project at Golden Shoe Car Park at Market Street by Capital Land. Now, a normal standard drilling rig height is approximately 5.8 meter. And given the height limit within the car park, there's no way a standard drilling rig can fit into a lower headroom site condition. Nothing to be concerned about. We have a ready short drilling rig for the soil investigation works to be carried out. So if you are required to carry out a soil investigation works, on reservoirs, sea, or river, not to worry. We are also actively carrying out projects for marine soil investigation works. Due to the project volume, we have invested one jackup barge in a few years back. One of our projects has been awarded by Singapore Power Group to conduct 10 numbers of soil investigation work and by a basin. You may refer to the site photo here. These site investigations were conducted under these conditions: a strong tidal condition, operating depth up to 32 meters from barge waterline to seabed floor, and 24 hours of shift work due to the strict timeline. Now, what happened to all these soil and rock samples that were obtained from soil investigation sites? They will be delivered to our laboratory for further testing. That's right. We have our own laboratory just for our soil and rock testing for our soil investigation works. Now, I would also like to share with you, currently my company have approximately 52 numbers of drilling rigs machine and 2 sets of core penetration test rigs to conduct soil investigation works. So if you're talking about project volume and working in the difficult site condition, nothing to be concerned about. We have all the professionals, resources, laboratory ready to meet your timeline. Other than soil investigation work, I would also like to share one of our awarded projects by Sembcorp Design Constructions to construct slope and cliff stabilization works within Gombak Camp. We managed to carry out subsoil pipe works, shotcreting works, and more than 1,000 numbers of soil nail that were installed on the project sites. Due to the confidential agreement, we are not allowed to take any photos inside Gombak Camp. So the site photo here is just an example showing the shotcreting and soil nail works that we have carried out in one of our projects. Now, we also know that Singapore Land Transport Authority have also been actively constructing underground MRT tunnels for the residents to maneuver around Singapore. We have been given the opportunity to carry out installation of soil nail, micropiles, ground anchors, shotcreting works by China Junior Engineering Corporation at Bedok South Station and Tunnel for Thomson East Coast Line. For this project, we are very proud to say that we are the first contractor in Singapore to install ground anchors using glass fiber reinforced polymer for this project. Well, that's all from me covering for Geotechnique's topic. My colleague Reuben will take over for the next few slides. Reuben, over to you.
All right, thanks, Frank, for the introduction to Geotechniques. Right, so for my end, I will cover the remaining 2 services. So this is for monitoring as well as surveying. Now we have quite a bit to get through. As you can see, we have quite a robust number of services. So I'm going to try and briefly touch base on as much as I can. But if you have any more questions or you want to know more details, whether it's specific cases that we present here or specific methods or equipment, please get in touch with us either by writing in the comments below or emailing us or even visiting our website. Right, so now on to monitoring. So as you can see here, we have 2 particular kinds of services that we provide. One is instrumentation monitoring, and the second is tremor or vibration monitoring. Now, instrumentation monitoring, for those that don't know, we define it basically as using instruments, sensors, to manually or electronically, that means automated, but to monitor the effects of civil work. So that could be the effects of construction, mining, tunneling, that sort of thing. Examples of this kind of application being used is, for example, monitoring settlements of the earth or civil structures. This can be, large towers, bridges, tunnels, monitoring movements of the buildings and slopes, or even something as simple as measuring pore water pressure underground. Now, in terms of tremor and or vibration monitoring, now this is a bit more specific where we measure, like the title says, tremor or vibrations felt at a particular instance on a particular site. This is done using electronic equipment that measures real-time data, or rather records real-time data of vibrations being felt. Application examples include, measuring or monitoring for vibrations in buildings, infrastructure, as well as earthquake monitoring on land. An example of the kind of monitoring that we do is in the Singapore MRT stations. Now, in this example, I can't give you anything specific because it is confidential, but rest assured, we have basically done monitoring for every single line on behalf of the Land Transport Authority. Another example is that we also were in charge of monitoring the construction phase for the Jewel Changi project. Now, this was a pretty big case, so there was a lot of monitoring being done underground as well as on the surface, on the structures itself, since it's so near the Changi airport. Last but not least, here's another example of one that we did for Marina 1. Now, again, this is a very particularly large, complicated structure. So a lot of monitoring had to be done to ensure that the construction of it did not affect anything in the surrounding area. Right. So in terms of surveying, we cover three particular services. The first is geophysical, using non-intrusive methods to basically image or measure certain properties in the ground. The second is 3D laser scanning, which we use, again, high-tech lasers to measure and model surfaces. Photogrammetry, similarly to 3D laser scanning, instead of using lasers, we also provide services that uses photographs stitched together to create models. Now, this is another explanation for what a geophysical survey is. Like I said before, it's non-invasive methods that we use for particular kinds of surveys that require us to look for certain things in the ground. Examples include mapping underground utilities, cavity detection, pole length detection, mapping of bedrock, etc. As you can see here in this list, there is a variety of methods that we cover. These are certain examples. If you're interested to know more about them, please let us know. I'm not going to go through it here as it would take too long. An example of the methods that we use, here you can see on the left, we use a GPR, and on the right, a specific utility detection tool as part of our utility detection services. Here is another example of one done in a rural area. This was done in the nature reserve in Singapore, where we conducted seismic reflection and seismic refraction as needed for the cross-island MRT line. Now, this one was a bit controversial and a bit complicated purely because we were working on a nature reserve. We had to work very closely with the government to ensure that everything that we did, even every footprint that we made on site, did not threaten the ecosystem or did not do any permanent damage. Last but not least, here we have an example of another survey that we did, this time in Malaysia, for the Malaysia MRT, where we conducted both MASW and resistivity surveys. This was done to a particular station. I cannot say which, but yes. Okay, moving on now, we're talking about 3D laser scanning. So like I said previously, this is a method that uses lasers as a remote sensing method to measure or collect data about objects, surfaces, anything that of interest that is needed that we can build a 3D model of. In terms of methods, we have two kinds. We have a static laser scanner, or LiDAR, as well as a kinematic version. Now, the kinematic version is pretty special because it helps us to cover large areas. So essentially what we can do is we can take the laser scanning apparatus, mount it on a vehicle, so it can be a car, a 4x4, trucks, rail, even a boat, and we can basically take it along and do surveys for large areas. Examples of certain kinds of items that we have modeled include tunnels, road surface conditions, slopes, even building 3D blueprints of heritage historical buildings. Here's a picture, an example of one that we did in Singapore, where we mounted our kinematic apparatus onto a locomotive and we basically modeled the tunnel of a certain MRT station, as well as surveyed the conditions of the rail lines. Here's an example of one of the test pilot projects that we did very early on in Singapore, where we essentially did terrain modeling in and around parts of Singapore as part of a demonstration. You can see here, the apparatus is now mounted on a truck, whereas previously, mounted on a locomotive. So you can see, depending on the requirements, we can basically mount it to anything that moves if needed. Moving on to photogrammetry surveys. So again, similarly to 3D laser scannings, but instead of using lasers, we use photographs. So the way this works is that we use basically overlapping images to create 3D models. Again, same kind of application. It can be used to measure and collect data about objects, surfaces, or anything of interest. Again, we have two kinds of setups or methods. One is being static, and the other one we use a drone. In terms of applications that we've done so far, we have modeled and monitored the inner workings, the inner linings of service reservoirs, as well as build 3D images of interior blueprints for historical buildings. An example of us using our photogrammetry here is one where we essentially did forest monitoring for the National Parks Board of Singapore, where we took images over time to measure the growth rates of the trees in and around the parks. Here's an example of a test flight that we also did using the drone, where we actually modeled our old office. Okay, so now we've reached the end of the presentation. I'm sure for all of you, there's quite a lot of information to digest from the number of slides that we have presented. Never mind, we're not expecting you all to, remember everything. But what we would like for you to take away from all of this is these 4 points. Number one, so in terms of manpower resources, hopefully throughout this presentation, you have an understanding in terms of the capabilities of our company. We have a diverse number of resources and methods of services, as well as the manpower to back it up. That's what we want you guys to know. Secondly, again, touching base on our services, they're all comprehensive, meaning that we are just not there to push buttons. Simply put, we are here to solve a problem. That's what we are there for. That's why we have that many services. One-stop shop, again, going back to our service capabilities, regardless of the problem that you have, as long as you come to us with that problem, chances are we have a solution for you. So whether it is geotechnical monitoring or surveying related, chances are we can do it and we can help you out. Last but not least, we want to emphasize that regardless of the complexity of the work that we are given or the problem itself, we are for the challenge. We have the capabilities, both technically and manpower wise, to be able to do it. So yeah, that's it from me, really. Frank, do you want to close up?
Okay, thanks, Reuben, for the brief presentation on monitoring and surveying topics, as well as the summary topics earlier on. So, guys, if you have any questions that you would like to know, please type your comment down below, or you can drop us an email at rock, that's ROCK, alias.ryobig.com, or you can visit our website at www.ryobig.com. Thanks for watching and have a good day.